we go. All right, going to go through a couple things with you today. Kind of make sure you understand one of the biggest qualities that you need to have from school part, whether you decide to go to a trade school, whether you decide to go to a college, whether you decide to just learn in general or write down things in general after life when high school is over with, is kind of the ability to take notes. One of the big things is there's not, to me, a specific way that works for everyone. Okay, there's certain things that, as far as whenever you're taking notes, it may look good if it's Roman numeral 1 ABC, then it goes to the next one. But if it doesn't match up with kind of what you retain the part of it, then we kind of got to understand. You got to understand yourself of how to actually take notes. All right. So for chapter 12, talking about China, the Mongols, the idea of what's going on with the Eastern Empire that's over there in the world during this time. You're not going to necessarily have to know specifics on dates of this empire lasted for this long, because you can kind of get in a jumbled mess with all of the different empires, the dynasties that go along to that time. So the biggest thing you need to focus on is kind of how did they get there and what is the purpose of them being there. Guns, germs, and steel. That's another really big thing. The evolution of the world and the continuation of the evolution of the world based upon guns, germs, and steel is huge. We're still living it today. We talked about the Justinian plagues. We talked about the Black Death. Kind of fast forward all the way through. And even though we're an advanced society, you see evident by us wearing a mask right now, germs still play a very, very large part in what is the survival of civilization. So then you go to the other ones, and guns. Guns are a big, big thing. Okay? And we kind of look at it in this section whenever we get into the idea of the samurai warrior. And whether you know anything about the samurai warrior or not, very, very talented, skill set fighter who makes a living, whether it be for hire later on or for his country in the beginning. But you can take that skill set out of play by a teenage peasant farmer if he has a gun in his hand. It all evens out. All that skill set's gone. And that's kind of how everything changed based upon the idea of gunpowder. Whoever had the best gunpowder, whoever had the best weapon, had the best opportunity to be able to win and lead and be able to take over. Gunpowder in the beginning was not something that was supposed to be for gunpowder. It was actually for entertainment value. It was supposed to be a firework. And then they found out that those little balls that have gunpowder in them that can explode and create a bang and a flash and everything else can be used for lethal ideas. And then that advances to a musket, that advances to, fast forward way down the line, a semi-automatic weapon that can make anybody be able to have a purpose as far as that goes. And steel. Steel is a huge thing. Whether it be the steel that you create your weaponry with, whether it be the steel that you build empires with, as far as industrial revolutions, building buildings, building factories, manufacturing the greatness of whatever your empire, your country is going to end up being. Those three factors are really big from here on out. And the idea of a gunpowder empire is kind of where it all starts in this time. All right, so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an introduction about the idea of what chapter 12 is and the idea of the empires in East Asia. It'll flip over for me. Stay black. There we go. But chapter 12 starts talking about the Tang and the Song dynasty. All right, so if you will, just in the beginning, just listen to this part, and then I'm going to kind of introduce you to what you're going to do for the 5 sections that are in this chapter, and you're going to end up creating a working notebook for this section that you're going to be able to use on your major exam that's coming up at the end of it. All right, so it says the Tang and the Song, China. During the Tang and the Song dynasties, China experienced an era of prosperity and technological innovation. Starting in AD 220, China went through a long period of troubles, which no single ruler was strong enough to unite the entire area. So all of China could not be united, so therefore they had separate dynasties. He brought the north and the southern regions under his power and named himself emperor. His new dynasty, the Sui, lasted only during his rule and the successor after him. However, these two rulers were very important. They connected the idea of the Grand Canal, a long waterway that would put all of China together with its two major rivers. It linked the people of the cities in the north to the rice-growing regions in the fertile south. The Tang dynasty followed and lasted for 300 years. Tang rulers retook northern and western lands and had been lost under the Han dynasty. Under Empress Wu, that's a big part because it's Empress that's in there. Ladies, pay attention in the back, please. Are you okay? All right. Empress Wu, the only woman to ever rule China as emperor, and the Tang captured parts of Korea as well. Early Tang rulers made the government stronger. To run their empire, they revived the practice of using men educated in the writings of the philosopher Confucius. Schools were set up to train people in these works, and candidates for government roles and jobs had to pass a test in order to win that work. Two big things about Confucius. Number one, Confucius was kind of similar during that time, like the ideas and the teachings of a man, except for he wasn't considered a god. He was just a normal person and really taught just normal everyday ways of life that we learn today. But in the barbaric times it was there, and how the rich treated the rich and the poor were treated by the rich. He wanted to make everybody pretty much equal. And then they adapted that style into the government actions. And whenever that happened, they kind of united a little bit more underneath the idea of Confucius teachings. The Tang dynasty began to weaken when the rulers once again levied heavy taxes on the poor. While the Chinese people became angry over these burdens, nomads attacked the empire's western lands and began to capture some areas. In 907. The last Tang ruler was killed, and a new dynasty, the Song, took its place. It too lasted for over 300 years. The Song dynasty ruled a smaller area than did the Tang. However, China, under its rule, was still strong. During the Tang and Song periods, China made advances in technology. They invented a movable type. That was basically a printing press. So they would have symbols on blocks. They put ink on them. They would press them down. Then they could actually pass that out. That was big because it mass produced the message of what they wanted to get into. Kind of the first idea of propaganda through the government to be able to get that message out. They also invented gunpowder for the use of fireworks and weapons. The Chinese grew more food based on the advances in farming and an improved variety of fast-growing rice. So they had a stable way to feed as many people as they had, especially the poor, because rice was readily available for all of their country. Trade increased, first through Central Asia on the land routes called the Silk Road, and then on later over the oceans. This allowed Buddhism to spread to China, to Japan, to Korea, and Vietnam. The Tang and Song China became famous for their artistic advances. These developments brought about changes in Chinese society. The old noble families had begun to lose power, and people that were educated, the scholars, became government officials and gained power. Below them were the urban middle class, the peasants, the laborers, and everybody else that was in a lower class. And the status of women during this time, because it was really about the cycle of men from father to son to grandfather, back and forth, over and over and over, continued to kind of roll. So women, their status became worse. Right? They kind of fell down the wayside in the Chinese culture that's there. All right. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go to your canvas. And if you click on canvas, I can go to it there. It's already loaded in your modules, so we'll just go to modules. And if you'll slide down to chapter 12. We'll go to Canvas, go to chapter 12, modules. And if you'll click on PowerPoint right there, it should bring up chapter 12 PowerPoint, which again will look like this starting off with. If for some reason it asks for authorization if you're on your phone as compared to your iPad, just log into your MyHRW and it'll shoot you right over to it. If not, I can help you here in a little bit, but it should be able to do that. All right, so what it shows here is chapter 12, the introduction's on that first slide. Go down to slide 3, and we'll start with section 1, Tang, and Song, China. Okay, so on Canvas modules, open up chapter 12 PowerPoint. All we're doing today is slides 3 through 9. Okay, section 1. It says, with your own style of note taking, create a working notebook for section 1 today. I don't care if you do it on paper. I don't care if you do it on Google Docs. I don't care if you do it on notes, however you want to do it, but you're going to end up being able to print this. So make sure you have the capability to print it if you end up doing it on your iPad, whether you print it in the library or you print it at home. All right. But for the first example, it starts talking about Tang and Song China. It says, during the Tang and Song dynasties, China experiences an era of prosperity and technological innovation. Okay. And if you need help getting to it in a second, I'll help you in just a little bit. Okay. It says prosperity and technological innovation. So whether you use bullets or whether you use Roman numerals or whether you use ABC or whether you use colored pencils or however it makes it easiest for you, all right, begin starting creating this notebook. And the middle of it's got the title, of course, because section 1 is about Tang and Song China. So I know exactly what it's about. During this time, China advances with technology and money because prosperity means you're making money. All right. Then the next slide goes into specifics of Tang. All right. So I label it, put it in the middle again. We're talking about Tang. I don't need to know specifics of it's 581 to 618. I just need to know that Tang was a dynasty. It talks about its main accomplishments, and it talks about some of its setbacks with higher taxes, forced labor, emperor assassinations. So with history, there's good and there's bad. All right. So you're going to label, of course, the good and the bad. So it talks about Tang for a couple. Then it goes on to talk about the Song. So I label a new one with the Song dynasty. And then it starts talking about together how both of them advanced the overall part of Chinese culture. Again, some of the setbacks, like the idea of the status of women and the levels of society. All right. And then again, that's all you'll do today is you'll start on slide 3 through 9, creating a working notebook that you'll be able to use on your exam for chapter 12. So however good you create it is however good your resources are whenever it's time to take a test over right there. All right, any questions? I'm gonna flow around a little bit, make sure you got logged into it, make sure you're checked in, and then again, you'll start creating your own notebook right there, okay?